Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Justin Pizarro. I'm your host. That's B as in boy, I-Z-Z-A-R-R-O, and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs. And if you're interested in being on the show, you can reach out to me at justin@thefoodentrepreneurs.com. And today, we have Oats Overnight. Brian Tate, the founder and owner. They are from Phoenix, Arizona. How are you doing today, Brian?
Doing well, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, thank you. And thank you guys for wanting to be on the show and coming on and reaching out. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, Brian, tell me a little bit about your background and sort of your story and how you got to becoming a food entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's quite a long one. Grew up in Michigan, and I played poker professionally for around 12 years. That took me out west, also moved to Arizona and then Los Angeles. Oats Overnight really came about while I was kind of crafting breakfast for my daily fitness routine. I'm sure most people are familiar with overnight oats now. Mason jar and spoon, it's more of a kind of a crafty type preparation where you soak oats in milk and add fruit and whatever else you'd like. I was making it with proteins, like a scoop of protein and different extras like maca root for energy and flax and chia seeds. And I was making this nightly, so it was ready to go in the morning. My schedule is quite atypical. I'd be waking up sometimes at 3 a.m., sometimes at 8 p.m. It was all over the place. So I needed a healthy breakfast ready to go. I did this for about a year, and so I'm not really a grocery shopper personally. So when I'd run out of oats or run out of protein or run out of something, I would kind of be stuck in a Starbucks drive-through for, a week at a time. And, I looked for a prepackaged version, something a little more streamlined, so I didn't have to shop for all the different ingredients and prep it nightly. And I found there was none. So at that time, kind of had that spark that most entrepreneurs do. And, I set out to make a version that hasn't been created yet. That's how Oats Overnight was born.
And so let's talk about this. I mean, you decide to start a food company. I mean, do you have a food background?
I do not. I've always kind of liked to cook and, create, special breakfast, dinners, whatever, with just the groceries that are in my cupboard. But I've never had any experience professionally or in business with food. It was quite a learning process, a lot of Google, a lot of trial and error. It's been a wild ride, but it's been a good one.
And so I love this because it's atypical for someone, to get into food that normally doesn't have a food background or worked in a restaurant first or have a family recipe that's something happened. This sort of came out of working out or your routine. So, I do CrossFit, so that's my workout thing that keeps me balanced. So what is it that you were working out doing that created sort of this brainchild?
Yeah, I think my workout routine was really all over the place. It was consistent in time. Like I'd work out 5 to 6 days a week. It's really important to do when you're sitting at a chair, 12 hours a day, which, most people are sitting for their job. So I found it really crucial for physical and mental reasons to work out consistently. But I'd just go into the gym and I'd rotate through different exercises. I'd, sometimes do programs. I was doing CrossFit for a little while. Some yoga, just really mixing it up. But of course, the nutritional component is always key to that routine, whatever it is.
And did you, okay, so you decided to do this. So let's really baby step this. How did you find a place to produce this? Is it something you bought the machine, you started producing in your garage? I want to give the audience sort of an idea of how you took this idea from, okay, here's my idea, here's the light bulb, to actually producing it and packaging it.
Yeah, it was, again, a lot of research. Being that I didn't have a food background, we immediately reached out to consultants who could kind of advise us, of course, on the regulatory side. It's very important for safety reasons and a lot of reasons really to be, totally compliant with FDA and food, regulatory bodies. So we invested pretty heavily into consultants and, getting everything together. Our runs at the time just started out as a kind of a side project, I guess. I wasn't ever expecting to give up poker full time. It was quite a good lifestyle, and we put a lot of work in over that 12-year period to get to where I was. But it started as a side project, I guess maybe a little naive, because looking back on it, it'd be quite silly to think you could part-time run a food business. But yeah, I mean, we had too small, our anticipated runs were too small for co-packers. And also it's quite difficult to do this in a standard co-packing sense. So we looked to get a facility in Arizona and, of course, registered with the FDA and did all the different necessary steps to begin producing, and hired a small staff to start out.
So you didn't actually go to a co-packer. You actually decided that I want to do this. I want to control the process. I want to produce it all myself.
Yes. I think given that the product is quite unique in nature, it's not just a powdered meal where you can just blend it up and drop it in a single drop. It's not simple like that. It's very, the textures are different, very diverse, and it makes for a whole food experience that you can eat out of the bottle. Which, we can get into a little more. But yeah, it was quite unique in that sense. So we had to develop a proprietary line to actually produce this, and invested quite a bit of time and a little bit of money into making that work.
Okay, so I guess my next question then would be, and I'm going to go back to a different question, but I think this one's the first one I want to ask, which is, so how then you've decided you're going to start this company? Obviously, you're putting in a boatload of capital because you've got to hire employees, you've got to train them, you've got to buy the equipment, you've got to set up the building, and then you've got to find a market for it. So, how did you guys go about finding that market? You mentioned the consultants and helping you with all that, but how did you take it to market from there?
I think backing up a little bit, it was pretty interesting, the timeline, because we invested heavily into the brand before really even understanding, how we were going to make this happen, which is really, looking back on it, a little crazy. We kind of learned as we went. And, we already had a brand packaging very similar to how it is today, even after 3 years. We had that brand developed, the rest developed in my kitchen. Using, the ingredients that we found suppliers for. We did all of that groundwork before we really knew how we were going to put this together in a sense that could scale. So that's the first part. I think we kind of dove in without really understanding the full nature of it. That said, we were confident in the product and very excited about, some of the numbers that we were seeing, the amount of people that were enjoying overnight oats, and, the bigger picture of cereal kind of being on its way out and really dying in America as consumers get more and more aware of what they're eating. That was really the first step. But once we.
So Brian, what you're saying is that you built the brand and the brand identity. I don't know if you use social media or what, but before you ever really launched the product and produced it, you were building this brand, which I love the name, by the way, Oats Overnight. It's pretty self-explanatory, and no one else is using anything by that name. So I'm going to sidetrack a little bit before we finalize the question I asked, in that, you came up with this name, you started marketing it. So, were you pushing it on social media?
Yeah, our go-to-market plan was, we intended to be direct to consumer. We set up a Shopify store, and the goal was to do Facebook, Instagram ads initially to gain traction. I don't personally, I'm not an influencer by any means, and, don't have a big following, but we have a big network of family and friends that kind of shout it out. And, I remember the first day we launched, we had no idea how many people would be ordering this. This was in August 2016, and we were super excited to see a couple orders come through. They were my friends, my brother's friends from med school who ordered it, but it seemed to be it meant the world for sure, seeing those orders come through.
Yeah, and as we get to the original question, but something that just occurred to me is something you said, which is, one is the cereal world that we're seeing in food and how that's starting to shrink. Less and less people are eating cereal, and they're starting to go more to the outside of the grocery store, and it's less popular in the homes. But the thing that I find interesting is how convenient your product is. I mean, that's the main thing, right? It's easy. It's easy to pack. I mean, it's easy to pack with you. It's easy to take with you. It's easy to take on the go, whether you're walking to work or you're jumping in a car or mixing it in a shaker bottle. I mean, the idea there really is going from mason jar to package and then taking it along with you. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, cereal is convenient in a sense that you can pour the milk and you can dump the cereal in. But everybody knows now how to read a nutritional label, of course, and the sugars are high, and a lot of ingredients that you don't necessarily want to eat in there, and it's not filling. I think the biggest issue that a lot of especially Americans are facing is they'll eat something quick, maybe even like a bagel in the morning, but at 10 a.m. you're starving, and what do people do? They grab a Snickers from the vending machine or a bag of chips or whatever, and that's really where ultimately people stray from their intended goals is, when you're hungry, you grab a snack, and not a whole lot to do there. This product is quite large. The serving size is around 80 grams, which, is quite a bit larger than the average 50 gram, oatmeals you see. We include a lot of really good ingredients in there that keep you full. Protein digests slowly, and, you really stay full until lunch.
Well, and I want to touch on that, just being in food myself, particularly in health food, is that protein, particularly as Americans, but as a whole, we never eat enough protein in a day. I mean, it's one of the hardest things I find to eat enough protein as I track, how much food I eat. I can blow my carbs out of the water, no problem. And I actually do pretty well with the vegetables and consuming it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But the carbs for me, I mean, the proteins for me it's hard. So having something like this that's easy and that goes with you and has the protein already in it is pretty amazing. And I definitely want to talk about that more, but I want to ask this question, which is, so you launched on social media. That's really how you brought it to market. So you didn't really go to any conferences or anything like that. You basically produced the product, launched a Shopify website, and then, the rest is history, as they would say.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, we started out on Facebook. We started out spending, $50 a day in ads. And, we got some early traction, and, we really, we're almost as much a digital marketing company as we are a product company. We really focus heavily on both of those. But yeah, it really was social media. Mostly paid ads, not as much organic to start. But, now that we have a following and, quite a tribe built that loves this product, needs it daily, there's a lot of that marketing that just spreads in a viral sense through the communities.
And so I want to pause right there just because we're on the topic, but how can people find you online, and what are your social media handles? Yeah,
you can find us online at oatsovernight.com. It's OATSOVERNIGHT.com. And our social media is at oatsovernight on Instagram and facebook.com/oatsovernight.
Okay, perfect. Because I want to make sure that the audience, as they're listening, hopefully not doing this while they're driving, but go to your website and just sort of see your website, see what you guys have built here, and really start to look at the products as we talk about it and the packaging and what it means and how to order it. So, I mean, I really want to dive into this. So how from there, I mean, what were your first flavors that you offered?
Yeah, so we started out, and this is actually pretty interesting too. Living in LA at the time, I really wanted to release a plant-based, naturally sweetened product. That was just kind of the goal there. We started out. It was very, very, very difficult to work with, brown rice proteins and pea proteins, especially with no real experience on how to source quality pea proteins, or I guess good tasting pea proteins. So we went with whey, which was a big decision to start. But the whey protein is easier to work with. And, we also found that buying like a chocolate protein from a manufacturer didn't taste well at all. Just like we found it was difficult to find over-the-counter proteins that you could scoop into your oats and taste well. So we set out to build our own protein flavors from the ground up, which that's another place that really, ultimately sets us apart, because we have that full, ability to really make these flavors quite unique. We started out with green apple cinnamon, strawberries and cream, and chocolate peanut butter banana, which are three of the more basic flavors, but we call them our classic flavors. And from there we've expanded into much more creative flavors like maple pancakes and blueberry cobbler, things like that.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and I love the names, and I love the product. I'm looking forward to trying. I have not tried it yet. It's probably something I should have done before we got on here, but I like the...
we got to get you some.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited, because one of the things I've noticed is it's actually, you're using, I don't know if it's all the items. I've only clicked on a few of the nutritional labels as I was preparing, but it's actually gluten-free oats.
Yeah, it is. We set out not necessarily sourcing certified gluten-free oats. And for those that don't know, oats are naturally gluten-free. It's really in the farming and the milling process where, they're carried and milled next to barley and wheat and rye. Cross-contamination is almost a certainty in all oat products that you find that aren't specifically labeled gluten-free or certified gluten-free. So that's very important for those that deal with celiac, which coincidentally my girlfriend does. She can't eat any trace of gluten, or she's sick for a very long time. So that was actually the driving force quite early on to switch to a certified gluten-free oat product, which of course is more expensive, but overall, having that gluten-free product and being able to offer it to everybody and not make people sick that might not quite understand the contamination issues with oats that's so prevalent was really important to us early on.
And so tell me about how you develop flavors. I mean, are all these things something you developed in your kitchen at home? I mean, so you launched the products and now you have, I think it's 10 with the new launching of a chai latte.
It's 9 now, actually. That was our 9th flavor. Yeah.
Nine flavors. And so how do you come up with them?
When we first started out, we wanted to hit some kind of key flavors in oatmeal and in traditional protein shakes. So we led out with green apple cinnamon, strawberries and cream, and chocolate peanut butter banana. I made these in my kitchen and tested them with friends, and we sourced the protein and built it from scratch to really match that flavor profile. But after that, we learned a little more about flavor and flavor profiles. And as the team grew, we kind of had an in-house focus group that grew along with us. So, we continued on and released peach upside down cake and caffeinated mocha dream, which we actually make a mocha latte protein powder for that one with real coffee. It has 90 milligrams of caffeine. It's delicious. Soon after, we decided it was ready to launch a plant-based line, which was all dairy-free and vegan-friendly. And so we developed blueberry cobbler, peanut butter cookie dough cacao crunch, and maple pancakes, which is my personal favorite. We just released the chai latte flavor, which is our first caffeinated, dairy-free flavor, caffeinated from real black tea. And so really the process is kind of simple. It's more fun, kind of like a nights and weekends thing that we do in-house. And it's just me whipping up crazy creations and, testing it on our 30 employees. And, they give the thumbs up or thumbs down, more of this, less of that. And, once we kind of find a flavor that really knocks it out of the park and fits with the schedule, we release it.
And so that's interesting. You talked about it a little bit earlier, but how did you decide pea protein versus sort of other vegetable-based proteins that are out there? I don't know the other ones off the top of my head, but I believe soy is one.
Yeah, there's a lot of options, and I think there's a lot of discussion around soy and a lot of hesitation, especially with males, to consume it. We went with pea due to its near complete amino acid profile and really digestibility. Also taste. It fit the, we did test a lot of them, but this really fit the flavor profile as well. And, of course, we're working with a bunch of new creative options now. If you guys have been to Expo West, you'll see there's always some new popular ingredients. So we're always testing, the next thing.
And I love that you guys used pea protein, because it is something that we're seeing more of, and sort of I see them meshed with the cashew and almond milks now to add extra protein to the milk. So again, to go back to what I was saying, is getting that extra protein we need in our diets. One, because it helps keep us from being starving all the time, because like you said, protein digests slowly, which is one of the cool things. And I do a lot of health food and health care in long-term care homes and sort of stuff like that. But what is actually people are discovering is it's not a matter of how many calories can consume or what we're eating. It's how dense the things that we eat are, such as how much actual nutrition do they have in it that keeps us from being hungry? Because the less nutrition, the more we want to eat and the more calories we consume. So, of course, a person's going to eat more at McDonald's or something like that because they're less nutritionally dense. And so then you're going to consume more calories. Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't watch your calorie intake. What I am saying is that things like what you're doing and putting the protein in your products, it's another way that's really making the nutrition very, very high on the product, And I said nutritionally dense about McDonald's. I meant nutritionally bankrupt, just to clarify that. As I correct myself, there's a lot of nutritionally bankrupt products, and, they don't have the things that we need as human beings. And it's a lot of the reason we're overweight is, particularly as Americans, is we consume a lot of calories because we're hungry all the time, but we're not eating the right things that build that nutritional value, that are slow processing, like the proteins, as you mentioned, that make us less hungry and starve off starvation, I guess, if you will. And
Right.
But so, you obviously know a little bit about taking care of yourself and protein and stuff like that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have mixed it into the oats and you wouldn't have created this in the first place. Do you generally live a healthy lifestyle? Do you believe in what you're doing sort of all the way around in your life? Because if you work out all the time, and you talked about, sitting as a poker player, I've got to imagine you're watching your diet pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, it's crucial. And backing up even just a little bit, we also add a lot of ingredients like flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed. Of course, the fiber content really also assists in keeping you full. It's very high in fiber. There's a lot of other extras in there too, like maca root. We even use ghirardelli cocoa and lots of good ingredients for taste in addition to the fruit and all that. But yeah, having a healthy diet is really crucial in poker. You really focus on your mental state. And it's easy. Everybody slips up. Everybody, is on a road trip and starving, grabs McDonald's at some point and, maybe regrets it later when their stomach's a little upset. Or some people eat it every day out of necessity because they have to get to work on time and, they just don't have enough time, at night to sleep. So they're forced to sit in a drive-thru in the morning and just have to grab something. And in some cases, eating some calories is better than none. Certainly found myself there before, but I do believe in this product. It's just really the answer to many, many, many Americans' problem in the morning. It's, take literally 0 minutes in the morning because it preps itself while you sleep, and you grab and go out and eat it in the car. It's not really a better option for breakfast out there, so we're confident in that.
Well, and I've read quite a bit of the reviews you guys have had, and just so the audience knows, there's literally 5,843 reviews as we record this podcast, and the average out of 5 stars is 4.5, which is pretty impressive. I see a lot of 5 stars, so I'm not sure how it's a little bit lower. Maybe it's the way the matrix works, but everyone loves how easy it is, how quick it is, and then the flavors that are in it. And then I've seen some comments that say exactly what you did. People don't snack as much, or they're fuller longer, and so they're eating better. And as conscious, you're on the run, so you don't have to drive through McDonald's, or you don't have to drive through Starbucks, or you don't have to sort of compromise your diet when you have something like this to remember. Basically, it's my understanding that all I do is basically add water or milk before I go to bed, put it in the fridge, and then grab it in the morning.
Yeah, water doesn't work, but any milk or milk alternative is great. Like if you want a lighter prep, unsweetened almond milk is only 30 extra calories, and it's delicious with the product. It's a really great option. I think Americans today are really focused on 3 things for breakfast. It's convenience, nutrition, and taste. and you're almost always sacrificing one for the other two. And so we really set out from the beginning to not just have a convenient and nutritious product, but also taste, which is why we, like I mentioned about the flavors, we really put a lot of effort into that.
All right. So now, we've talked about the food. The audience knows what it is. Now, so let's talk about what are the things that you really enjoy about being a food entrepreneur, and what are the things that you don't like?
Let's start with the things I enjoy, because easier. I definitely love that I'll be out, even at the gym or, really wherever, anywhere. And I'll regularly see people eating the product. And, of course, I'll wear a Oats overnight hat sometimes. And, strangers will come up to me and ask about it and, say that they've been eating it for a year and loving it. So it's really, really, truly amazing to see the impact that it has on other people's lives. And, we get messages every day, tons of messages every day, like just genuinely thanking us for making the product. A lot of great stories, weight loss journeys, things like this. And that's truly fulfilling, like beyond the potential, down road success that we're working for. That really keeps us going through the good and the hard times. Things that I don't like, I guess it's it's tough because of course nobody. It's a lot of work, and I love it. I do love the work, but there is a lot of it, and things always happen. Something always comes up. When I'm sure most entrepreneurs can relate to this. You'll have a schedule for the day. You wake up and you have 40 emails in your inbox. 5 emergencies that totally reshape your schedule, and that's kind of the day to day. There's a lot going on, and it's exciting. It mixes it up. It keeps you on your toes, but it's a lot of work, and you really got to focus on work-life balance, which I'm very into. It's really key to focus on that work-life balance and make sure you're in the correct mind state to be able to quickly and efficiently address concerns and make decisions that, in a decisive manner, and not let your personal life slip to where you're not as effective, really on the court, so to speak.
And so, let's talk a little bit about that. You have employees, you have this business now, and that you're running. So every day you're sort of is an adventure, right, as an entrepreneur. And is it as exciting as being a professional poker player, or is there a difference? And do you miss one versus the other? Because you've sort of, I believe, are now doing this full time, if I understand.
That's correct. Yeah. And yeah, they're really night and day. They couldn't be. There are a lot of parallels in personal parallels, I guess, like the way you think, the rational mindset, the way you address successes and failures, and how you weight those and make decisions based on those moving forward. A lot of that is almost exactly the same between a food entrepreneur and a poker player at a high level. The differences are really, like you mentioned, the team. Poker is very solitary. You hold yourself accountable. It's all about, you put more work in off the table, you do better on the table, and you just really have to put the work in. It's game theory, it's math, a lot of talking about hands and strategy off the table that really ultimately leads to success. But it's very internal. With being an entrepreneur, it's very team-based. You're managing people, 30 employees, every one of them has a different personality, and you need to make sure that they all mesh together. You need to make sure that everybody's happy and getting what they want, out of the job and, out of that, culture that we've built. And so managing that is a total difference from poker. I love it. It's been 3 years of learning, and I, plan to continue learning until we finish, but it's been a lot of new information and quite the experience.
And it's just so cool what you guys are doing. I love the marketing and stuff like that. So, and you mentioned you're sort of basically a social media marketing company as well as a food company. And how do you handle all that? Your photos on social media are phenomenal. It's something you guys obviously focus on. So, I mean, how did you decide that such an emphasis needed to be played on that? Is it someone you brought in, or is it something you guys sort of decided as you were starting the business? Because I think you're doing something just such on a high professional level.
Yeah, so from start, the ads and all of that is managed, by us. I still do most of the management of Facebook. Really all of the Facebook campaigns and targeting and things like this, and that's really where a lot of I guess as we bring it up, another place where a lot of skills translate, dealing with statistics and analytics, which is really heavy in poker. So that really translates nicely to Facebook ads and digital campaigns. As it relates to the creative, we always saw creative, especially being online. Your Instagram profile, your website, that experience the customer gets when they interact with your brand at any place really is your storefront. I mean, that's the storefront of a brick and mortar store. It's how they feel when they come in, how they're treated, if they have a question or a concern. And that's really key. I mean, if your storefront, a place where people wouldn't necessarily want to shop or certainly eat, you're not going to get or retain a lot of customers. So we really focus on that experience from start to finish. With praises and problems, we make sure that the customer feels valued and really has a good experience, and sometimes they'll laugh while they're there.
And one of the things I actually love about what you guys are doing is that when you're going out and touching the consumers and really reaching out to them, but the way you're marketing that's not only the protein aspect of it, which I mean, when Olivia reached out to me for you guys to be on the podcast, and I looked at it and I saw the protein, and then I'm like, oh, well, how much is this going to cost? Because in my mind, I see what the supplement companies charge for something like this, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's going to be like $10-ish probably. And then I see what you guys are doing, and I'm like, oh, $16. Well, okay, so it's higher than I thought. But then I realized that's a 4-pack. And so it's $4 for this thing that you take to go, which has more volume than your typical breakfast, and you can take it with you anywhere you go, and it has the protein. So the pricing strategy on that, I think, is awesome too, and that includes shipping and taxes, and sort of gets it out there. So, I mean, what were your thoughts behind that pricing scheme? Because I love the way it is from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, of course, and I think price is an interesting topic here, because I've talked to other friends that have CPG businesses, and people always complain about price. But whether you feel it's priced well or not, there's always complaints. And I think with us, we've kind of won up against plain oats. I mean, a lot of people comment in the ads, I can get a tub of Quaker for $2. I mean, of course, the plain oats are very cheap. It's a piece of our product, and we source certified gluten-free oats and all that. But there's really 20 plus other ingredients across these flavors that are very premium. Things like maca root, vanilla bean, all the different seeds, and of course the proteins and many other ingredients that really make that value there. And yeah, it gets as low as $3.14 for breakfast with our subscription, our 24-pack subscription, and that includes delivery, which is another thing a lot of consumers don't get, especially in the Amazon era, where you're fighting against free next day shipping. It's a tough battle to win. But we priced it, I guess, to answer your question. We had a lot of thought around price, because we launched a product that wasn't really available on the market. I mean, of course, you can make something like this at home, but we really wanted to be cheaper than a breakfast sandwich at Starbucks. We wanted to be right in that range where customers that want a healthier breakfast that's even more convenient than a drive-through, because it's ready when you wake. We wanted to really have knock it out of the park and ensure that customers would find it a good value when they compare it to the other convenient options on the market. And that's why we set out with that near $3 price point.
And I actually love that, because I did notice that once you start getting up to the bigger pack sizes, it's a benefit. Now, so do you guys sell wholesale, or is it the only place they can buy it is online from you guys?
Right now, we're entirely direct to consumer. So we do work with Amazon pretty heavily, and we sell on our site, oatsovernight.com. So that's really the focus right now. And we've been reached out to by a lot of big retailers, and eventually we'll move into brick and mortar. That's an eventual plan for us. But we really want to take our time and develop those relationships right now with the customers. So I think once you kind of set it out into the world and start selling to distributors and getting into retail, you really lose touch with that feedback and you lose touch with that customer. And we're still learning every day from comments, and we take all these comments very seriously. We talk about a lot of them internally. It comes up regularly in our meetings, and we're pretty nimble. We can shift and we can launch new flavors that our customers love. And we really like the time that we're in right now, where we can get that feedback in a direct sense and really understand the customer. But when we're ready, we will move to brick and mortar.
One of the things I love about what you're doing in direct to consumers, you actually own your own customers. Where I feel like sometimes with brick and mortar and things like that, they own the customers. Or even with Amazon, it's a little bit hard because I feel like Amazon owns the customer sometimes in the businesses that I'm involved in. And it's an interesting thing. But one of the things I love, and you mentioned earlier, is that you use Shopify, which I use as well on our direct-to-consumer brands. And it's because, I don't know, I found it easy. It's just something that happened 5 years ago. Someone suggested it. But there's a difference to me in being able to contact and have the relationship with my own customers versus when I deal with brick and mortars or I deal with institutions that there's a couple steps in between my products and the end consumers. And it makes it hard to control your brand a little bit and what it means for the consumers. But I mean, like you said, the only way to truly grow eventually is you do have to be in brick and mortar so people can buy the stuff off the shelf. So it creates an interesting dilemma. But I do really love your packaging, and I love the logo, and I love how simple it is. I mean, Oats overnight is literally just a saying, and I actually love that it's such a simple brand, and the packaging is so simple, and it's easy to read, and it's color coded, which I love color coding, and I love that it sort of tells you what's in there. And I even love the one unique one, which is the peach upside down cake that sort of has taken the logo and flipped it upside down. And and just to market it, and I think it's funny and it's marketing. But I mean, how did you come up with it? I mean, was it always your idea to keep it as simple as possible, or I mean, was it something you had to do because the packaging restricted how much you could put on there? I mean, I'm really interested because I'm like, it's so simple and it's so straightforward.
Yeah, I think when developing a brand, it's important for the founder and the early team to really develop something that's true to them. When you look at a brand that comes to mind is RX Bar with Peter Rahal, the whole ingredients on the front of the package, no BS. It's genius, and it was at the time that started. Of course, many brands have adopted that structure with the the very forward-facing ingredients, simple packaging. It really reflects Peter's personality. It's important to stay true to yourself when you're doing that, and it really ensures that the brand will be received if that is done well. And I think when it relates to Oats overnight, this is really my style. It's clean, it's simple, it's a beautiful package, and it's a complex product, but you wouldn't necessarily know it at first glance. But when you start to look at the nutrition label and the ingredients, and the value offering that we've created, it's a great experience all around.
Well, and I actually love that, and I got to tell you, my household eats probably about 6 RX bars a day between the four of us in here, because they're simple, they're easy to use, they're clean labeled, and there's different varieties. So I love that it's sort of the same idea, and I actually think what you're doing is pretty awesome because you can grab it. It's by the one pack. It's like an RX bar, and that you said, but it is so simple and it makes so much sense the way it's being marketed. I think you guys are doing a great job for what my opinion's worth, and
I appreciate that. Sure.
I'm just like, you guys are really on to something. I encourage anyone in the audience to really take a look at this, and I haven't tried the product yet, but I'm willing to bet it's good because of all the reviews. I mean, they speak for themselves. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to, now it's just a matter what flavors, or do I want one of every flavor because I've got to try everything. That's the type of human being I am. I want a little of everything. But it's pretty cool. And I mean, what does the future hold for you? I mean, more oats overnight flavors, obviously. But I mean, really, if you could take a second right now and just say, what are your goals for the future for your company, and where are you hoping to be? And are there other products you eventually hope to introduce?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what started out as admittedly a side project many years ago now has really turned into a passion. And I love food. I love the food space. Once you're in the mix on anything, you kind of look around, and especially when you have that entrepreneur mindset, you see a lot of opportunity everywhere. And I think that's what's happened with our team and our core team. Breakfast is a category that's gotten very, very little development really over the last 50 years. People are still home making oatmeal and eating cereal, really, less and less, of course, but it's still a staple. And you see things like meal replacement shakes and powdered meals kind of taking market share in breakfast more and more. And that's really just due to the convenience. They're typically a little cleaner label, a little healthier, and they're convenient, so customers eat them. But the direction really for Oats Overnight, and certainly for the overall idea and brand, is we're going to continue to release, first off, great new flavors, likely different offerings, both seasonal and mainstay products that are just functional breakfast products. And really eventually the goal here is to build a more functional, better for you, almost tech forward Quaker that ultimately is a breakfast staple for Americans.
Well, and one of the other things is that I think, like corporate America, a lot of people now provide breakfast snacks and stuff for lunch for their employees, and we're seeing this trend sort of happen, and there's some more corporate stuff going on, or people bring food trucks to their offices and things like that I've learned from this podcast, as well. I've seen it with my own eyes, and being in the food business, we feed all of our employees while they're on the job. But it's cool because I feel like it's a better option than just having a thing of oatmeal in your office or a thing of oatmeal there to use. And I understand it needs to soak and things like that. But, if I were an employee, before I left work, I would make my thing, put it in my shaker bottle or blender bottle, and leave it there overnight, and then just have it there for me in the morning when I arrived at work if I'm a person that didn't eat at home. I wouldn't even worry about it. And I think that for companies offering that as an option, I think you're getting your employees to work. You're providing them food when they get there, for less than $4 if you buy the bigger packs. And your employees are being more efficient by coming to work and eating at work. So, there's this whole spin on marketing and play that I really just think is totally awesome, and so much potential, and where people will actually grab onto it. That's where it appeals to me. It's like, okay, people can eat at work now. They can put their thing in the fridge overnight and arrive the next day, and it's there for them, and they can eat it, at their desk or before they get on the job, and be more efficient at their work. So I think that's cool. And the other part I love about it, as someone who, spends at least 90 minutes a day working out, is that just for my mental fortitude, that includes walking. I try to do like 45 minutes of walking outdoors, but it's where I don't have a lot of time, and I try to eat as clean as possible, and watch what I put into my body, and I travel a lot for work, and it makes it hard to bring anything with me. If I pack a cooler, like I'll carry this cooler around with me, which I'm that guy at the airport, by the way, and I'll have like my chicken and my turkey and my whole stuff. But if I can just I can pack these in my suitcase. I can put them in there, and if I'm going to the office or I'm at a hotel, I can literally get the milk from the hotel or the almond milk from the hotel and put it in there and let it soak overnight, and then I can go first thing in the morning. I don't have to, wait. And a lot of those free breakfasts that are at the hotel, the eggs have, a lot of cream in them, or there's just bacon, or there's not a lot of healthy options, and the oatmeal is there, but it's plain oatmeal, number one, and number two, it's the ingredients and stuff you put in there. You don't know, how they're sourced and things like that. And as a person that's conscious about those things, this makes it so much easier for me. Now I just got to worry about carrying extra blender bottles just for this, because I already carry a bunch as it is. And it's pretty cool, and I really like what you're doing and how it appeals, and it can appeal to the traveling American. It can appeal to a kid going to school. It can appeal to a person who's working out. That it doesn't have to be just breakfast, really. I mean, this is something I could eat for lunch. I could eat for dinner. It doesn't matter, as long as I make sure I soak it for a long period of time. It doesn't necessarily have to be overnight. And so now my options are like, okay, it can be any time I need a meal replacement, and I need that protein, and I just need something healthy, and I don't have a lot of time on my hands. But as long as I prep my food anyway, so this isn't very difficult.
Right, and it's actually good to eat. I mean, we recommend a minimum of 4 hours in the fridge. Of course, I mean, we've heard everything from customers, though. Some mix it with, 4 ounces of milk, stir it up, and eat it in an hour, and it's a little crunchier. There's a lot of flexibility here with the package. It's good for up to 36 hours in the fridge as well. So, when I was making this at home back in 2015, it wasn't really an overnight thing necessarily. I would just put it in the fridge whenever I didn't have one, and it would be ready whenever I needed it. So sometimes it wasn't always breakfast. Sometimes it was a post-workout meal, or even a dinner if I was crunched for time. And I generally lean toward mornings and afternoons, but it's a really nutritionally complete meal that's ready when you are. That's the big value piece there. And we do sell. When I say we don't do wholesale, we're not in distribution or anything, but we do sell to a lot of like office spaces, workplaces, car dealerships, schools, even athletic programs. We do a lot of that, but it's handled in a direct sense. It's not done through a distributor. So. And it is great for efficiency. Back to your point, I'd say our office is probably the most efficient around. Nobody's late.
Yeah. Well, and you don't have to worry about someone else delivering your product and stuff like that. If you're controlling the process and you're not dealing with a distributor or a broker or whoever, it's all on you, which I like as well. I don't have any problems with distributors or brokers, but personally, I like it when I source the food, I package the food, and I ship the food, and if I have to use a third party to ship the food, I like being the one who ships it because I can ensure it all the way to the end. That doesn't mean I do it that way every time. Let's keep that in mind, because I have to deal with what the clients want. But it is one of those things that I think is just truly special about your model. And I think the fact that you were able to build it in the way you have, which is totally modern, which is totally the way businesses are right now. Like, people don't realize that people go to market and then worry about the social media or the advertising and all that. And then they're like, well, why am I sitting on all this product I had produced or my factory or my production facility? And you're like, well, in today's age, the way we need to build and market our companies is we actually need to get ahead of it before we produce a single beverage or a single piece of food or a single supplement or nutritional item, because launching a product right now, the only way to really get in front of people is social media and those type of advertising and having a website and having a presence. So before you ever spend the money on the actual product, it's like you need to spend the money on building that following, which has gotten a little harder with Facebook changing its algorithms and Instagram changing their algorithms. But like you said, there is a way to do it. You just have to pay for it, which is not much different than the traditional advertising. It's just the message is getting delivered in a different way, and you still have to pay for it.
Absolutely. And I mean, attribution is much easier to see with Facebook ads. I mean, when you put a radio ad up or, TV commercial or even like billboard, you're kind of in the dark there. It's really difficult to decide, if you have, one radio show, one radio commercial in some network, you don't know how do you know if it did well? How would you get to the point where you scale that to 50? You really need to be confident when you're scaling those. And that's where Facebook's great, is you see what works, what doesn't, you test everything. creative, different copy, how you engage even in the comments, like the tone that you have when you're speaking to customers, and how you represent your brand. You test that stuff, and you kind of find out what doesn't work first, of course, and then you hopefully stumble upon what does. And when you do, you see the results, and when you see those results, that's how you get to scale it. And that's really kind of the process there, that is lacking in other channels like Billboard or things like this. It's difficult to confidently scale that, and especially when you're bootstrapped, of course, that's crucial.
No, and I agree with that 100%. Having the analytics at your fingertips to actually read things on the fly is pretty amazing. I mean, even if an ad's not doing well, you can literally turn it off and stop spending the money. You aren't committed. Where with a billboard, you're committed for that time period, no matter what. So I find that stuff interesting. But so if you could go back to, when you started this in 2016 and tell yourself anything that you wish you knew then that you knew now, what would it be?
I think there's a lot of really little things that we got distracted on. I think the biggest thing would just be trust your instincts, especially if you are the one that developed the product or the service or what you're offering. Really just stay true to yourself and what you're trying to build. There's going to be a million people in your ear, giving advice and saying, you should do this. Look at this company. They did that. This worked. This didn't. I think looking back, we listened to everybody in the beginning, and I don't necessarily think that's a mistake. We learned faster, but we went down a lot of dead end roads. That looking back, I think I probably felt that they weren't worth the time, or in a lot of cases weren't worth the time. But we did it just to explore. And, by nature, I test everything. So I think I'm not sure that I could have done that differently, but, it certainly took up a lot of bandwidth and in some cases a lot of money, going down roads that, we didn't have a lot of faith in, both for marketing and, development. There's a lot of different things. We weren't really efficient, or as efficient as I'd like to have been with time and money.
Yeah, I actually agree with that a lot in my own experience. I didn't think about it until you actually said it. No one's actually brought it up on the podcast before, but there is a lot of, one, you want people's advice, you want to learn, and you want to move forward, but you end up sometimes chasing a lot of rabbits down a lot of rabbit holes that, one, aren't profitable or wasteful. And I mean, you almost have to make the mistakes and fail to learn the lesson and learn from it. But on other hand, I think there's a part of what works for other people doesn't necessarily work for you or the brands that you're building or the products you're building, which, here
Exactly.
or there. I mean, I don't know if there's a right answer other than just going through it. That's the thing as a food entrepreneur I feel like you have to do is you just have to go through it, and you have to learn, and you have to find your own way, because no two people's paths are the same. And I think it's so important.
For sure.
And
and I think to clarify, I think really it's who you listen to, who's giving that advice. I mean, of course, there's going to be advice that might have been well intended that doesn't work out, and a lot of that's fine. But you just need to filter that with like efficiency in mind, and not go down every single road. Maybe pick 70% of them. You know what I mean? And really pick and choose who's giving you that advice. Like, have they done it before? Have they had a personal experience, or is it something they just saw or read one time in a blog?
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's hard sometimes to filter some of that. And I agree with that 100%. I think, particularly since it's a podcast, I will mention this, is that I have a lot of people that come to me or want to be mentored or whatever, and they've listened to the one podcast or another, and they have all this advice and things that have been given to them. And, I'm like, has the person actually ever been an entrepreneur, or are they giving you advice as an entrepreneur? Because I can tell you that as fluff and great as that sounds, that's not really been my experience. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just not my experience. And, there's a lot of things like that I think that are out there. And with information being so easily available, and again, where social media also helps a business and also can go against your business, not only in negative reviews, but if you start to listen too much and do too much research and not really filter it, like you said, appropriately, it can lead you down the wrong path, for sure.
For sure. And especially on social media, there's this kind of element of, the vocal minority, where, you get a lot of people that might be, screaming something in one direction, and you'd think, wow, should I change the brand? Like, should we do this instead? Should I pivot that way? But, if you do the research and you kind of really look at that from a 10,000 foot view, and, how big is that concern, or how, is that person really my customer? Because that's another big one, is a lot of people, especially again on social, they like to, speak negative, or, but, there's going to be negative people everywhere. I mean, you look at YouTube comments, it's pretty tragic. So I think, you got to really know your customer as well, and stay true to that in addition.
Yeah, I can agree with that more. I think that's part of it, is knowing what your brand is, and you're not going to, and if you really want a new brand and you're doing something hip and new, what everyone else has done isn't going to work for you, because if you're trying to disrupt and create something new or whatever, I mean, you're doing something totally different with oatmeal, basically. And that whole thing, it doesn't fit into where everyone else has been. It has to be something that, you can learn from the past, don't get me wrong, but it's something that you have to really launch and be your own person and own business and find your own identity and be true to who you are as an entrepreneur, because it reflects you, and go out there and do it.
Exactly.
And so, Brian, I want to have you back on the show, because I have a lot more questions and things I want to go over. So I'd really like to have you on as a part 2. But before we go, is there anything that you just want to share with the audience, or about your products, or things that, you came on the podcast that you wanted everyone to know, or, if you could scream it out to the world?
Yeah. I mean, I think, the biggest thing is just, pay attention to what you're eating and how it affects your physical state, your mental state. That's another great experience with poker is, you're sitting at a table, you're in your own head for many, many hours at a time, almost 7 days a week. You see how these little things, kind of affect your mindset, and, how physical issues, can translate to mental issues, and how closely linked they are. And so I think really, being introspective in that way, and understanding how, most importantly, your diet fits into that. Does that put you in a bad mood because, you eat something unhealthy, or you're hungry in the morning, or whatever? Really just kind of examine that. And, that's really brought me a long way, not just professionally, but personally. And, really kind of fine tuned, that piece of it, and ultimately leads to a happier life. So I think, that'd be my one piece of thoughts for the day.
Well, and thank you again. And I will get back with you, because I'd love to get a part 2 recorded right away and get that on there, because I have so many more questions and thoughts, and really want to dive in deeper to some of the details we've mentioned, and really explore each one of your products as well, and sort of talk about them so the audience knows about them. But that being said, thank you everyone for listening in. This is Justin the Food Entrepreneurs Podcast. Again, I'm Justin Bizzarro. If you like what we're doing, reach out to us at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs on Facebook and Instagram. And thank you everyone for listening in.
Thank you, Justin.